Welcome to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe, Kyle, and Ray. Be warned, the discussions in this podcast will contain detailed spoilers. Enter at your own risk and enjoy the show. So you knew eventually we were going to review the Thomas Crown Affair? Damn, I hate being a foregone conclusion. And this is Reviews Without Remorse, episode number 192. And in this episode, Joe, Kyle, and Ray discuss the Amazon MGM creative takeover of James Bond. And then we actually talk about our favorite, most quotable movies this time. Do you want to dance or do you want to dance? Gentlemen, what's going on?
Hey.
How are you, Joe? Good to see you.
Gentlemen and ladies, hold the presses. This just in.
All right, let's get right into this one. Boy, this one has rocked the foundation of the James Bond community. Amazon MGM has taken creative control over James Bond. And yeah, people are losing their shit.
You're not kidding.
So, guys, what do we all think about this?
I'm cautiously optimistic, I think is how I'd put it. I think it could be a good thing. I'm just worried that they're going to ruin it with, some woke bullshit or something. And multiple spin-offs, Money Penny, the series, something like that. I just want to stick with, the formula that's worked for so long.
I'm a little bit nervous that they're going to go down the Star Wars route and just do too much content too quickly that isn't very good. I don't want them to rush this. But if they put the right person in charge of creative here, this could actually be really good news, because No Time to Die felt like such a coda. Like, this is it. We are done. Eon Productions is finished, and I'm not surprised by the Michael Wilson retirement announcement. I think every way he's been treated since 2020 has been indicating that he's gearing up for retirement. The Irving Thalberg Award was kind of like a career capstone for the two of them. And Barbara Broccoli has just been so checked out ever since Daniel Craig stepped down from the role. So I just don't think their heart was in it anymore. And now we've got a studio that has a lot of money to dump into making a really good product. As long as they have the right people minding the store, this could be really, really good.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with everything you guys said. Obviously, I've already done like two vlogs about it, so I won't go too crazy again. But to sum up, yeah, I'm very happy about it. I'm very happy that I agree with you that James Bond in the hands of Eon was essentially dead in the water. Nothing was happening. Literally nothing was happening. So, and I kind of find it sort of weird that I'm having these sort of online debates with people, and again, friendly discussions, all people I know, and it's all good. But like a few people were so surprised and shocked and caught off guard. A couple of people told me like, I think they would have gotten around to it if you just gave them a chance. And I'm like, gave them a chance. It's been 4 years and they haven't done. It's not like they're just dragging their feet and moving slowly. Quite literally, they've been telling us, we haven't really gotten around to it yet. So
it's been 4 years. It's been 4 years since the last film. It's been
since the last release.
It's almost 6 years since the last film was in the can.
Right. So
it's wild.
So there's really not much to say in that respect. I mean, they've earned the rest, and thank you for everything you've done at this point. It's time for the retirement party.
Amazon's been knocking it out of the park with a lot of their action films too. So I'm actually looking forward to seeing what they could produce.
I'm the same way, and honestly, it's funny. I think a lot of people are. I think people are putting too much weight on the actual parent company now. That's sort of, over MGM and over James Bond. Just because Amazon owns it. I mean, put it this way: the same company that put out the first season of The Mandalorian is also the same company that put out The Last Jedi and The Acolyte. So it's almost like it almost doesn't matter. There's no guarantee that just because a certain owner has this right now guarantees it's going to fail or succeed. But yeah, I'm with you, Ray. I mean, honestly, Amazon, I feel that they've done a lot more right than they've done wrong. I mean, I feel like, people keep reminding me about the last incarnation of the Lord of the Rings. Fair enough, yeah, but I mean, they've also done Reacher, The Terminal List. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff that they put out. So I mean, if anybody's going to take this over and try to put some creative people in the driver's seat to run with this, I think they're a good choice.
I'm glad it's not Disney. I have a little bit more confidence
Right.
in Amazon than I would to treat the character properly than I would in Disney. So I think it's the best case scenario. There is no perfect. Look, Cubby is dead. That would be the best case scenario. It would be like a Richard Maybaum written James Bond movie directed by John Glenn and produced by Cubby Broccoli. That's not going to happen anymore. We kind of have to live within the landscape of cinema and Hollywood that we have in the 21st century. This is as good as I think it can be right now.
Yeah. And that's a big part of it. Honestly, everyone is sort of, grunting and groaning about, I mean, I guess I'm sort of, not to sound like a snarky dick, but guys, what are you asking for in lieu of a time machine? We can't go back in time and just wish that, the old days of Cubby Broccoli, like you said, John Glenn, and, cranking out movies every two. I trust me, nobody wants that more than me, but I can't match that up.
Right.
It's not on the table. So it is what it is. And honestly, everybody's talking about the Broccoli legacy, and again, God bless, thank you, and nothing but accolades for everything that they've done. But there's no younger generation stepping up to take that role. So if that's it, then that's it. I can't pretend that they're just going to indefinitely make movies. They're not. They're done. So, and even if they were intent on keeping it, that's still not a guarantee of anything. I mean, people are going to get old and they're going to pass on, and you need younger blood to step in and start to take the wheel. And there's none of that happening now. So again, I can't magic up a perfect solution, but I think this is the best of all available options.
I don't want to point too many fingers, but Road to a Million did not do what I think Amazon and Eon hoped that it would do. I think it was a placeholder. And I don't know if it was Amazon really behind that or if it was Greg Wilson really behind that. I've heard conflicting things, but it didn't do what they wanted to do. So they had to make a move. They had to do something a little bit different. And I think this is our best hope of getting a new James Bond film within the next 4 years or less than if it would have stayed status quo.
I feel like I'm happy with this move and this move alone to free up the ability to create new stuff. With that said, again, that's not a guarantee of what we're going to get. I mean, things could, like you said, things could go wrong. Road to a Million was a strange animal, and it does sort of make you, right? I mean, it's a reality show. It's a run-of-the-mill reality show like The Great Race or any of those things.
Yep. With
a James Bond brand on it, yet it seemed like it didn't want to be a James Bond show. Right.
I feel like the James Bond part felt like an afterthought with that show.
Absolutely. I've compared it to you're going to your favorite restaurant to get a really nice meal, and all they brought was the sauce and the seasoning. There was no steak. The steak is still in the kitchen. Right. We had the James Bond seasoning, but nothing substantial, nothing filling.
And not enough seasoning even to make it feel like it was really strange.
It didn't even trick me into thinking I was eating a steak.
Right. It was cumin. There was no salt and pepper.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. So anyway, incidentally, another thing that I actually said to somebody today too was, I think a lot of the hesitation and a lot of the disappointment that's going around has a lot more to do with just the state of cinema today. And I said to somebody today, I said, listen, dude, in the last 10 years, I've seen Han Solo turn into a deadbeat dad who gets murdered by his own son. I've seen Luke Skywalker chuck his father's lightsaber off a cliff just because it subverts expectations. And I've seen Indiana fucking Jones get knocked out cold by a 90-pound feminist. I get what you're talking about. I totally get it. But again, be that as it may, it doesn't mean I want them to stop making movies because this is the possibility that could happen. I agree with you. Let's pray that that's not where this goes.
They just have to put the right person in charge of creative. And I think in the right hands, we could be moving into the next golden age of James Bond. And I spoke with you guys last weekend. I'm losing track of time. I think it was last weekend about how whenever the future looks most uncertain for the James Bond franchise, that's when they pull out an all-time classic. That's when they made The Spy Who Loved Me following up on The Man with the Golden Gun. That's when they rebooted with Pierce Brosnan and made GoldenEye. That's when they really did a hard reset and made Casino Royale with Daniel Craig. So 3 times when the franchise is dealing with this question of relevance, they've pulled out all-time classics. So in the right hands, I think Bond 26 might be one that we remember forever.
Well, nobody's going to go out with me.
Have you asked anybody yet?
No, but who would? I don't even have any good skills.
What do you mean?
You know, like nunchuck skills, bow hunting skills, computer hacking skills. Girls only want boyfriends who have great skills.
All right, so we are going to discuss our favorite and most quotable films, and I'm very curious to see what you guys come up with. I kind of felt I kind of felt like this was one of those where I'm doing it all the time, and then when I wanted to sit down and sort of try to remember what I quote most, I kind of went blank. But I did come up with a whole bunch. So, who wants to go first?
Joe, I agree with you 100%. Like in everyday life, as I'm talking, movie quotes just spill out. And then I'm sitting there trying to remember, like, okay, well, which ones are my most quotable? Let me do like the top 5. And then I just blanked out. And once I actually sat down and I'm like, man, okay, well, I know I say a lot of things from that movie. Let me write that one down. So I have a top 5 with an honorable mention. All right, so my honorable mention is going to be Fight Club.
The first rule of Fight Club is you do not talk about Fight Club. The second rule of Fight Club is you do not talk about Fight Club.
Nice.
You are not a beautiful or unique snowflake. Pretty often, quotes from the movie. My number 5, I'm going to give to Shaun of the Dead. My wife and I quote that movie constantly. You've got red on you. Things like, no, it's not. It's fucking Sunday, and I got to go to work in 4 fucking hours. Like things like that. It's just always natural.
Mm-hmm.
Grandma's Boy is my number 4. It's a lot of comedies on this list. Grandma's Boy comes up a lot, probably a lot more than it should if you've seen the movie. Number 3, I'm going to give to Ocean's 11, believe it or not. Not a coincidence.
Nice.
A lot of things from Ocean's 11. Ghostbusters would be my number 2, not my number 1.
Ooh, that's a surprise.
Yeah,
I know, right? And my number 1 quoted movie is Super Troopers.
But our shenanigans are cheeky and fun.
Yeah, I mean, his shenanigans are cruel and tragic.
Which makes them not shenanigans at all, really. Evil shenanigans.
I swear to God, I'll pistol whip the next guy that says shenanigans.
Wow.
Nice. I actually, it's funny. I had Super Troopers on my list too, and I was thinking, it's when I was kind of going over these, I was sort of saying to myself, like, there are some movies that are very quotable because they just sort of fall into conversations naturally, and there's other ones that you just enjoy saying the lines, so you just kind of take whatever opportunity you can. But I had Super Troopers. I had on mine too. I was like, if anybody says shenanigans again, they're gonna... I'll have a liter of cola.
Liter cola. Do we have liter cola?
I was tempted to put Fight Club on mine too, only because that used to be one of the ones where I would get tuned up and start screaming, "Do you know the first rule of Fight Club? First rule of Fight Club: you do not talk about Fight Club."
His name was Robert Paulson.
His name was Robert
Paulson.
All right. Well, I thought that we were doing top 10, so I came up with a bunch of them, and I had a hard time narrowing it down to just 10. But when I get to how many I've listed, you'll understand why I wasn't able to keep it to 10. So my number one most quoted movie of all time has got to be Caddyshack.
Well, we're waiting.
All the time,
Nice.
whether it's Your Honor, he's a Cinderella boy. I mean, I could just quote that movie.
You'll
all
get nothing
day.
like it. Well, we're waiting.
We're waiting. And I feel like it's one of those that most people know, and whenever you throw out a quote from Caddyshack, everybody always smiles.
Yeah.
Number 2, good for this group, because I know you guys are both fans of this film, is Goodfellas.
Now go home and get your fucking shine box. Motherfucking mutt! You!
Whenever somebody gets up to get a drink, it's always, hey, Spider, give me a cutty in water. Something like that.
Yep.
Hey, what's my username tonight, too?
Johnny Two Times. There you go.
I'm going to go get the papers. Get the papers.
Get the papers.
I like.
Wake up, Henry.
It
There's
is a wing. What do you want, Henry, to leg it a wing?
The poor little thing. It got its hoof caught.
You know,
What do you call it? The paw?
Yeah,
The hoof.
I like this one. One dog goes one way, the other dog goes the other way. This guy's saying, "What do you want from me?"
So that's number 2. Number 3, I went with The Big Lebowski, which when I first saw this movie, that was another one that just every single day would be standing at the lockers, just going like, "Is this what day is this?" Or just anything like that. That rug really tied the room together. And this guy,
What's the beverage, man?
Shut the fuck up, Donnie.
My Cousin Vinny would be my next one. I'm
Good
sticking
one.
I've got a lot of
that's great.
comedies, but just the one that I say the most from this movie would be Danical.
Identical.
The whole
two, what?
the Mrs. Riley bit, the 2 Utes bit. That's
Yeah.
another one that just comes.
When they're
My
in the diner.
biological clock is ticking like this.
I like when they're in the diner and they just look down. They go, "Breakfast? You think?"
Good choice. 2.
Yeah.
I'm not jerking you off. I'm not jerking any.
Next one on my list is Animal House.
Oh, good one.
After that, I've got Wedding Crashers,
Okay.
followed by Mean Girls, which growing up in the 2000s and being a junior in high school in 2004 when this movie came out, that was like I basically lived that movie. Very true to life for me. Pulp Fiction.
Ezekiel 25:17.
Pulp Fiction was one of my honorable mentions.
Forrest Gump, just saying things like Lieutenant Dan,
Yeah,
ice cream,
Run, Forrest, run.
magic legs. And Trading Places, which is a movie that we talk about all the
good one.
time.
Uh-huh.
Usually around New Year's, Merry New Year, Happy New Year. In this country, we say Happy New Year. Which brings us to 10, but I have one more. My number 11 is This Is Spinal Tap.
These go to 11.
Because my list goes to 11.
Well played. Well played.
Applause, sir.
Excellent. Beautiful. Well, I tell you, so you definitely got a couple of mine that are on my list. Lebowski was on my list for damn sure. Goodfellas was on my list. Super Troopers was on my list. So a couple odd ones out. I had Napoleon Dynamite.
What are you gonna do today, Napoleon?
Whatever I feel like I want to do. Gosh.
And
Excellent choice.
Yeah, that one. Whatever I feel like I want to do. Gosh.
God.
Girls only want guys with good skills. Can I get some of your thoughts? One of the ones, not so much lately, but Swingers was always a big one for me.
You're so money and you don't even know it.
You're so money, baby.
There you go. You're so money, baby. When I asked, when I was sort of doing this, I was talking in a group chat with my brothers, and of course I said, "Hey, what are some good quotable movies that we always do?" My brother says, "Braveheart, if you're awesome."
Go back to England and tell them there that Scotland's daughters and her sons are yours no more.
So I had to put Braveheart. I said that's a good one. I got. That's a good one for like again getting a little too tuned up, and it's like tell them there that Scotland's daughters and her sons are yours no more.
If William Wallace was here, he could fire thunderbolts out of his arse.
Ron, the English are too many.
The English are too many. Dumb and Dumber was one.
Oh, great choice.
Nice.
Had to go with Dumb and Dumber. So you're saying there's a chance.
Our pets' heads are falling off.
Samsonite. I was way off.
I knew it started with an S, though.
My last one, and this is my my Thanksgiving watch every year: Trains, Planes, and Automobiles.
Oh yeah, that's an excellent choice.
And I feel like that's just one because I just love saying some of the lines in there. When they just did the bit, like every time I watch that movie and they're doing the bit where they're driving down the wrong side of the road, and this is the second they go, they say we're going the wrong way, and he goes, "Oh, what do they know? How do they know where we're going?" Yeah, how do they know where we're going?
Thank you.
I mean, I laugh every time. Like that's the first time I see it. And when they get to the point where like Steve Martin's outside the car and he's losing his mind, and he goes, "Well, I thought you put it there. Why would I put it there?" I'm rolling every time I see that. Like it's the first time I saw it.
I want you to talk about women.
Oh, I enjoy women. A woman could trust me, as long as her interest didn't run too contrary to my own.
This painting is worth $100 million.
They shut off the air to drive out the tourists. Then they close the gates to keep everybody out. Diversion. Make a lot of noise over there. So over here in this room, you can take $100 million off the wall and waltz right out the front door. Oh, that's good.
Oh, yes.
A rich and successful playboy, Thomas Crown amuses himself by stealing a priceless Monet from the Metropolitan Museum of Art. But Crown may have met his match in the clever and seductive detective Catherine Banning, as a complicated back-and-forth game with romantic undertones begins between them. Written by Alan Trustman, Leslie Dixon, and Kurt Wimmer. Directed by John McTiernan. 1999's The Thomas Crown Affair.
Right off the bat, Pierce Brosnan is my favorite James Bond, which puts him high in the running for the title of my favorite actor. I mean, he's up there for me with Harrison Ford, Jack Nicholson, Gene Hackman, Pierce Brosnan. And this is, I think, the best movie that he ever made. So that should tell you how I feel about this movie.
I'm going to break your heart, Kyle.
Wow.
Really?
Pierce Brosnan was the only good part about this movie, in my opinion.
Wow.
Yeah,
I was not expecting that. Go ahead.
This is
not
going to
a
be good.
fan. It made no sense to me. I didn't understand the love story. It was one of those movies where like the relationship doesn't make sense to me at all. They're just in a relationship to be in a relationship, or just to have that conflict. I didn't buy it at all. The heist itself was actually kind of cool. I enjoyed that part. The big reveal at the end, that was awesome. It also made no fucking sense. Who are all these people in bowler hats and switching briefcases? I didn't understand that. What's her name? Catherine, played by Renee Russo. I didn't find her to be like the super attractive female lead that we're expecting. And she screws him over every chance she gets, and yet he's still infatuated with her, and surprise, they end up together at the end of the movie, and she threatens to break his arms. What the hell was that? That made no sense.
Have you seen the original one?
I have not seen the original, but I've heard that the ending is much bleaker. Did not have a happy ending.
We will talk about that as this conversation continues. This is going to be a lively one, because this is a movie I hold in very high regard.
I'm the same way. I thought this was going to be kind of another gush fest when we're all sitting around, spending too much time going, yeah, that was cool. Oh, yeah, that was cool. I'm
like
shocked.
Chris Farley.
Exactly right. Hey, remember that? That was cool. I think honestly, I think this one is not very different than when we talked about Ocean's 11, where I feel that this film is pretty flawless in its execution with some extremely minor commentary. But yeah, I think this one is great. When it comes to the romance, I'm gonna wholeheartedly disagree, because I felt like this is kind of like a classic Bond romance, where I kind of feel like going back to From Russia with Love. Frankly, it's one of those where the intrigue is so great because they start out where they're both trying to get something from the other, or they're trying to play the other one to figure out what do they know, and I need to find out what they know, so I'm going to try to get under their skin, etc. She tries to play him, he's trying to play her right back, and then somewhere along the way somebody catches actual feelings, and I kind of feel, and you're always sort of struggling to figure out, like, okay, it's getting to the point where the two people involved are getting confused. I don't, am I with this person because I like this person? Am I with them because I'm trying to achieve a goal, etc.? And I think that's the best kind of intrigue, those kind of romances where honestly, this is like spy work, watching them sort of play each other. So yeah, I think the whole thing works great. And Kyle, to your point, again, we'll talk more about it, but I think this improves on the original. I think this takes a great film and does, like Ebert used to always say, Roger Ebert used to constantly say, why are people constantly remaking good movies? They take a good movie and they remake it. And why? Just if you're going to do something, take a mediocre movie and remake it into something spectacular. And again, I think they took a good movie and made it a great movie.
Yeah, I agree.
Top scores for me.
One of the things about this movie that they don't really do anymore, and it's one of the reasons why I buy into the romance, is it takes its time. I don't feel it's rushed. They start out as adversaries, and I think because they intellectually challenge one another, they intrigue each other, and we are given time to watch their relationship develop, because she's trying to catch him and he is trying to find out how much she knows and if she's really onto him, because she's the most challenging. She's the person who's his greatest threat in getting found out, and because they challenge each other intellectually, they wind up falling in love.
I didn't feel that way with it. I thought that it actually moved along too quickly. Especially
we're not going to let you. We are going to convert you. You are not walking away from this telling me that you don't like this movie.
I mean, Catherine Banning, Renee Russo. She has to be like wild in bed. She has to be top tier in the bedroom. For him to fall in love with her over like the course of a week that the movie takes place, if that, it's only a few days. It's not like a months long thing. So the relationship just felt rushed to me. I did pick up that they're playing on each other and stuff like that. Pierce Brosnan's character, Thomas Crown, doesn't actually admit until the third act or so, the last part of the movie, that he actually has the painting that was stolen. He always avoids that question throughout the first half of the movie, at least.
I'll even take that a step further. I don't know that he ever actually admits anything, really. I mean, honestly, it's not really until almost the end when he's talking about putting the painting back on the wall, I think is the first time that he starts to, and even then, I don't know if I would even call that an admission exactly, but I mean, it's enough to, like you said, it's feeding into your expectation, but it's not quite factual. You know what I'm saying? It's not like he pulls it out from behind the drawer and says, okay, yeah, you're right, I got it. It's right here. There is always a kind of, he's telling you without telling you, sort of.
Yeah, right.
And incidentally, getting back to, it's funny because you sound like I sounded when I was talking about Julia Roberts in Ocean's 11.
Yes,
and
100%.
You know what I mean? And I spent like 20 minutes talking about how I wasn't buying her, as being this do-all end-all. But I think Renee Russo here is, I think she's nailing it here, because I love the fact that she's not, Pierce Brosnan is someone who is accomplished. So he's a guy who's got some silver in his hair. I would not want to see somebody who is like 20 something, trying to sort of play. I wouldn't want that at all. Renee Russo to me is kind of exactly right. Like she's at the right age, but I mean, I think she sells it completely where it's like she just kind of comes at him. She's a challenge. And again, his whole character is that he loves a challenge and that he's easily bored. He's made his millions or billions even. He's accomplished everything and now he's restless and he's bored. So he loves a challenge. So when she kind of comes at him, he takes the bait, maybe he's taking the bait, maybe he's not. But I mean, you could totally see why he would be into her. And again, I mean, she comes pretty hard. I mean, she comes at him hard. She's very direct. She's challenging. I mean, showing up in the sheer dress at the party, it's like, boom, you can't get more aggressive. I mean, aggressive isn't even exactly the right word, but I mean, she's fierce in this, and I totally get why he'd be into her.
And that's kind of the central theme of this whole movie is, what do you get for the man who has everything? I mean, this is literally a guy who steals priceless art for kicks because he's bored. So he needs to do something like to eschew the frivolous and embrace an intellectual challenge that he has not had for some time. He's conquered Wall Street. He's just got more money than he could possibly spend. He lives like a king, and he's bored. So he needs something to inspire him, and he finds that in an intelligent, mysterious woman. Ray?
What say you, Ray?
You son of a bitch.
Tell us why we're wrong.
I guess it's just the character itself. Just that stuck up, snobby, I know everything. She did a great job at playing that character and playing that role, but I just didn't buy the relationship between them. It just didn't make sense to me. This is the person that's coming after me, that's going to try to get me arrested and put me in jail, and I'm in love with her all of a sudden. It doesn't check for me. It makes no sense.
Maybe you should check out the original, and there's lots of, I'll call them echoes of the original film in this one. Thomas Crown's therapist in this movie is played by Faye Dunaway, and Faye Dunaway plays the Renee Russo character or the analogous character in the Steve McQueen version. Even some of the dialogue is lifted verbatim from the 1968 movie. Like, whose head are you after? Yours. Mine? Do you always get your man? Always. Think you'll get me? Like, that's right from the Steve McQueen version. Maybe if you watch that, you'll buy that romance. I'm not sure.
I'll give it a try.
It would be interesting to see how you respond to that one. I love that this film. I mean, like you said, Kyle, to your point. I mean, I think this is a perfect example of a remake done right. Because I as much as I like the Steve McQueen, that one is. I mean, for not to spoil anything, but the heist in that one, it's really strictly just like a bank robbery.
It's a bank robbery, yeah.
Yeah, they just and it's kind of it's a little more, I don't want to say violent, but it's a little more blunt. Like there's more it's a little darker, like it takes itself, I think, a little seriously. There are a couple little violent moments in it, and I kind of feel like when you watch that one versus this one, you realize, well, I don't know if it really needed all that. And quite frankly, I think that changing the bank robbery to an art heist, I think was, I think it just takes the level up really nicely. It kind of adds, like, this movie has a posh kind of feeling. This is one of those movies like Ocean's 11. This one maybe even more so, that I will just pop on sometimes, if I'm doing something and I just want to put something on to play in the background. When I was at work, we had a TV screen in the office, and if I had the office to myself for a day, I popped this on a couple times. So yeah, I think just the whole vibe of this movie is really cool too. Again, it's one of those where it shows you the nice parts of New York City, you're in the museum. We're discussing art. The lifestyle stuff in this is great. I mean, honestly, when he takes her out and they start off in the glider, and then after that they kind of go right to the island where they're chilling out. I mean, like, I just love that. Like, how cool is that?
It's a vacation movie.
Right. Yeah, it is. It's an escape movie. It's like, man, if I could just live like that for a couple of days. Yeah.
Yeah. And to your point, Joe, it was an inspired decision, I think, to change the central heist from an armed stick up in a bank, slapping around bank tellers and pointing guns, to an elaborate high class art heist. That was a very good decision, because now we can sympathize a little bit more with Thomas Crown. He's not directing people to point guns in innocent bank tellers' faces. He's stealing a painting, which makes him a much more interesting character, and somebody, again, he's doing it for kicks, not for money. This is for the thrill, and because he needs some sort of intellectual challenge.
Yeah, right. I mean, he's quite literally just chasing an adrenaline rush for doing this. And you're right. I mean, it's relatively pain-free. I mean, I think a couple of the goons that he hires get kind of roughed up, but yeah, for the most part, I mean, he's pulling off this heist with little kids on a field trip just a few feet away, and it's mostly, everybody's kind of unharmed, and it's all in good fun, you could even say. So yeah, I think that was a really smart decision. I think that was, to your point, I mean, I think it was inspired.
Ray.
Oh man. All right, so another complaint. How are you going to cast Dennis Leary in a movie and not let him be Dennis Leary? He didn't have any of the humor. He was very dry. He was what was his name? Officer or Detective McCann, right? Mm-hmm. And that's all he was. It wasn't himself. You could choose any other actor and put him in that spot and have the same performance. If you cast Dennis Leary, I expect to see Dennis Leary. The ref, have like some dirty jokes, adult humor, that kind of thing. I just thought it was an odd choice for casting.
I'm going to disagree with that. I thought, put it this way, kind of to your point, it used to sort of drive me crazy when I would see Robin Williams get cast in movies, and there has to be an obligatory scene where he goes off on some tangent where he's doing impressions and voices and stuff for a movie that isn't about that. You know what I'm saying? Just because somebody somewhere saying, hey, you got Robin Williams, make him do the thing. You got him in this movie. I think he's very well cast in this. And I think he's very much like a city cop. He's got a streetwise way about him. I mean, I frankly love the part when she's starting to get little her edges are starting to get a little frayed. She's starting to get a little frazzled by this thing, and he's picking up on that. And there's some exchange where he says, "How are you doing?" She says, "I'm fine." And then he follows her, goes across the street, follows her to the bar, and he goes,
I was okay once. My girlfriend got drunk, stayed out all night, came back in the morning, married. I told people I didn't care, and then I fucked 5 women in 3 days. Flipped my car on an on-ramp. Beat a suspect unconscious, got suspended. But I was okay.
And and that's him. I thought that's him doing Dennis Leary and doing right by this character. I thought he was really kind of perfectly cast.
And he's the anti Thomas Crown. This is the guy who is a beat cop offering to take her out to his favorite pizza place, and Thomas Crown is bringing her to the Met, and he's filling her up with the best wine, and the next morning he has his manservant make her favorite green juice smoothie. So it's a nice juxtaposition, a nice antonym to the Thomas Crown character. He's the exact opposite, and he represents a different path for Catherine.
Yeah. And I also I'm trying to remember if this is played up a little more in the original, but there's like a extremely subtle hint of like, I don't want to say a love triangle, but just the fact that he's a little interested too, maybe.
Yes.
That kind of it's almost very far in the background that you it's very subtle and you don't really pick it up. But it's almost like
they do kind of wink at that a little bit, and then towards the very end when she's leaving after the second heist or the surprise, I guess, and then she ends up giving him a couple kisses, and then leaves out to go meet Thomas Crown.
I thought it was just sort of perfectly well played, and again, he never tries to be anybody else other than who he is. I mean, he goes, oh, you keep an apartment. I keep goldfish,
Right.
like that kind of stuff. I mean, he never kind of bends, tries to, play to her at all, but you kind of do. It's almost you could feel it in a little bit of the tension where he's a little cranky, and she says something like, I'm just here for the painting or something. He goes, well, what do you think that makes you? Whatever. After they slept together and everything, so he's gonna take a couple of jabs because partially because he doesn't like this whole thing, but partially a little jealousy in there too, kind of thing. So I mean, again, really well written, well played out.
Yeah, he's a streetwise guy. He's more used to chasing down punks than he is Wall Street tycoons who steal paintings.
Yeah.
Like this is the kind of guy who's arresting bank robbers, not art thieves.
Yeah, and I love, and at the end he kind of says as much. He's like, you know what, I don't give a shit. He goes, 2 weeks before I met you, I was chasing down a father who was beating up his kids, and he's like, I don't. If some silly guy wants to steal silly art, and only silly people care about it, I don't give a shit. So I mean that kind of stuff was great.
Mm-hmm. And I think Dennis Leary is the right guy for that kind of role.
Yeah. And frankly, I think at that time, I remember. Is Ray making faces?
Yes.
It's an Ellie too. I think Dennis Leary was one of those guys who was sort of at risk of being kind of typecast as just being the kind of like put it this way, to your point about giving him, like, The Running Man is a perfect example of when they throw him in there and then they give him like his time to do his shtick, where he kind of goes off on this tangent, and it's like, it's okay. And it works for that one because that movie's like a lot more tongue in cheek than this one is. But yeah, I mean, he could have been a guy who was kind of typecast into the wrong movies too often. I mean, he's a funny guy, but I think he showed in this movie that he can be a serious actor. He can come to a serious movie and really show his acting chops too.
Do we know each other?
Not yet. I'm Catherine Banning.
And whose head are you after?
Yours.
You're enjoying something, a worthy adversary?
An entertainment.
Do you really think I'm going to sleep with the man I'm investigating?
Always get your man?
Mm-hmm.
Think you'll get me?
Oh, I hope so.
I think he's very well cast. I think the whole cast is. I mean, I love that this is a movie where a lot of the supporting characters seem to get maybe not get their time to shine, but they have fleshed out characters. Like there's like his partner Peretti, who's Frankie Faison, who you see in a lot of things. He's really good, and he's got his own personality, and it's like he's going a lot more. He likes Rene Russo's character. He likes what she's up to, and he doesn't mind a lot of the things that she does, kind of thing. He's having a little more fun than Dennis Leary is.
He's constantly smiling and laughing throughout the whole movie.
Yeah. I think he's great, like he's a really good presence, and he's kind of he perfectly sort of offsets a lot of those moments. Like when you see Dennis Leary getting a little too grumpy, and then here he is off to the side with a smile, that works pretty well.
And he always plays a cop, that actor. Anything I've ever seen him in, he's playing a cop. He played a cop on The Wire.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. I remember him. The first time I saw him was in Do the Right Thing. Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing. One of the guys sitting on the street corner talking all day. So I like seeing him in other. He was another guy who could have easily been typecast, but he does a lot of good things, and he's really good. What about the whole heist? Because I thought the heist was almost flawless right up until the end, but we'll get to that. But I thought the whole heist thing went really well. I thought that was pretty well played out.
Well, a Trojan horse letting the guys into the museum.
Yeah.
I thought it's hilarious.
Yeah, that was clever.
That's
I like that.
inspired.
Right. Again, it's one of those too where it's like you might not even notice the first time you watch it, but the second time you're like, I get it. Yeah, I thought that whole thing was really good, and I loved the way that it was sort of done to be a massive distraction, while he just slips the thing off and walks out the front door with it. I thought that was really well played, and it was nice the way. I mean, it was, and I love the moment where you see her pick up on, like, when he's in the other room talking, when they bring in Thomas Crown and he identifies the bad guy, and then you hear him talking, and she just kind of perks her ear up a little bit, and she's like, wait a second. You know what I mean? I kind of love that, because I kind of felt like that's very, partially because it just sort of feels true to life. Like when you hear people talking and you kind of, like, something they're saying, it just kind of goes, wait a second. So, like, something just feels funny. And I also kind of felt like it was interesting because it reminded me of, I'm going to fall back once too many on Bond references here, I think. But like I always say, I love Casino Royale, that there's moments in it where you see him doing actual detective work, sort of, or you just sort of see his mind, his brain kind of picks up at certain moments, whatever. Same deal here. I thought that was really clever, that she just kind of was there, heard him talking, and went, wait a second. And now suddenly she's curious about this guy.
Yeah, I think that's very well played. And I think that's something that you pick up on in repeat viewings, because they play with the audience's expectations a little bit. You kind of expect the team of Eastern European goons to be the thieves, and it's not that way. And then you pick up on a lot of the subtle cues between Catherine and Crown, mostly, the more you watch this movie.
Yeah, I thought the heist part was actually really cool. At least the first heist. Whatever they were, Russians, Romanians, having them, as the distraction. And then, like you said, he just kind of slides in 2 seconds and he's out with the painting. That was really cool. But it's the other part that I actually really, probably the one thing I really liked about it was the hidden in plain sight with the missing painting. I thought that was actually really clever, and was not expecting that.
It's a nice little twist.
I totally agree, and it was one of those wonderful moments, almost like the Sixth Sense kind of moment, where all the pieces start to fall right into place at that moment, and you realize, like, oh yeah, he donated the painting, he hired the forger, all of those little roads they were going down all sort of fall into place in one shot. It was great. If I do have one criticism, and I don't know if it's a criticism or just I didn't catch it or whatever, kind of like your point, Kyle, about where did the bags of when they walk out of Ocean's 11 with the bags and where they come from.
Yeah.
I guess I walked out of this movie kind of saying, okay, how does he get that second painting off the wall? That all of a sudden it's like everything makes perfect sense right up until that point. It's a nice little garnish, it's a nice touch, but I don't get how that happened or where that came from.
I had read that McTiernan actually shot something and they decided to just leave it a mystery.
Okay.
Because I think not knowing sometimes makes it more intriguing, because you're thinking in your head, well, how did he do that? And you come up with these scenarios on your own. Yeah. I'm a huge John McTiernan fan, and it's funny that he has directed 3 of my, I would say, top 10 movies of all time, this being one of them, and the other 2 being Die Hard and Hunt for Red October. I think he's kind of like an unsung cinematic hero of mine. I wish he would do a Bond film.
I 100% agree with you too, and I love that he's, those 3 movies that you mentioned, they have very distinct styles too. It's not like he's the kind of guy that you can pigeonhole and say, I saw this movie and I could tell right away he was the guy doing the other movie, because it's not at all. Right. Very different styles, but boy, do they work. You're absolutely right.
Ray.
Have we changed your mind yet, sir?
No, not quite.
Did you find?
I'm not
Did you
entirely
find?
sure what would change my mind.
Did you find any of it erotic?
No.
No, because I think
Well,
that this is
Brosnan's chest hair, maybe, but
this is a great way to make a movie sexy without being like gratuitous and explicit. I think.
I would. Yeah, Ray.
No, I mean, I'm thinking about it. I'm like, no, nothing did it for me.
It's not clicking
just
for you.
Wasn't. Yeah.
See, Kyle, I agree with you, and I think that I would. It's almost like the eroticism was sort of like a hard PG-13 kind of thing, where like they didn't quite go overboard with it. Definitely erotic, and I thought it was all handled pretty well. I thought it was great, and again, it really. I thought the romance really was handled great because the pacing of it kind of really worked. You know, right to your point earlier, you said it all felt kind of rushed, and I kind of felt like, well, I don't. It didn't feel rushed to me because it felt like they're on a roller coaster ride. I mean, I've seen other films, Spectre, where they seem to.
Yep.
Right. Right. It's like, but I'm watching their time together. So when this happens and then this happens and then this happens, now they're madly in love. I'm not buying it because I saw them together the whole time, so I didn't see it happen. You know what I mean? I didn't see the click. Here, I thought it sort of brilliantly paced. I thought, from the friendly meetings to a couple of jabs and barbs here and there to dinner to, it just goes up and up and up. They have sex but then they don't see each other. Then they're on the glider and then spending the weekend together. I mean, I thought it played out perfectly. I thought every bit was fleshed out properly and correctly. It just worked.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Like I said earlier, this movie takes its time. It shows us scenes of them spending time together that have nothing to do with the plot. It's just them learning one another and getting to know one another. Movies don't really do that anymore because it's always get them to the next thing to drive the plot forward or the next big action scene or whatever the set piece is. This movie doesn't really do that. This movie evolves and it takes you along with these two characters as they do just things that couples do. They go to the museum together. They go out to dinner together. They go on the glider together. They go window shopping. It's just taking its time showing us these two people falling in love.
The steps are all there. The casual date to the museum, the casual date to dinner. It escalates and again they're back and forth the entire time. I mean, things like the glider is interesting because I mean that's kind of you're taking her on a date that's not just a stroll through the museum. That's kind of like an adrenaline inducing activity. You know what I mean? So it's kind of something that really can bind people together a little stronger. And then again, going straight to the and I love the stuff like even the simple things. It's funny, like so the glider, they do the glider, and then the private jet picks them up. And I like the part when she looks out the window and she goes, "That island is not Manhattan," And he's like, and she says, "I have appointments." He goes, "Do you want to keep them?" I mean, good stuff. And then just the simple part of her when they show them getting into the Jeep, and she walks over. I got to climb over, whatever. And she's got the cup of soda in her hand. Like, why? Like, what does it have to do with anything? With the fact that she's holding but I kind of felt like it was almost like you're showing them sort of going through life together, if that makes some sense. Like, it's like they're just doing things now where it's almost like they're getting so comfortable with each other that they're starting to act like an old married couple. You know what I'm saying? I just thought that really kind of worked.
Yeah, I completely agree. I buy the romance between the two of them, unlike, and it's funny that you mentioned Spectre because I was thinking the same thing. As much as I like that film, one of my critiques of it is they fall in love too quickly. And with this film, I don't feel that way.
Yeah, I read the movie completely different than you guys.
We know.
It felt to me like he, obviously, but it felt to me like he was just trying to show off and woo her with his money. That's why he was doing all these different things, and the expensive necklace and all that, just to get in her pants. And then afterwards, all of a sudden, they're madly in love. But she continually thinks that he's cheating on her with the I don't want to, well, spoilers anyway.
Yeah.
With the forger's daughter.
Yep.
She thinks that he's sleeping with her, but she still comes back 2-3 times after that, and twice she catches him with that woman, but she still comes back. It didn't work. It didn't work for me.
Thomas Crown is the kind of guy who doesn't need to go to any great lengths to get into a woman's pants. It's not about that for him.
Right.
It's the challenge, but he says that when they first meet too.
Yes.
Or, what is it, at dinner? And she says, "Oh, I'm not going to sleep with you the first time, meeting," or whatever she says. And then they go back to the apartment, and he waits for a second to see if he's going to get invited in. She's like, "No, there's somebody, everybody's watching." And then he gets in his car, and then he stands there and looks up like, "All right, am I going? Is it going to happen? Not going to happen?" And then leaves. So to me, that's what it was. It was him doing all these things, trying to sleep with her. That's what it felt like to me, and that's what didn't work.
And that's an interesting take, but I think that's also one of the reasons why I think the script goes to the trouble to let you know that she also comes from wealth and a level of privilege too. They purposely tell you that, like, she's like, again, I keep an apartment in Manhattan. Like, okay, so you obviously have some bucks if you're just keeping an apartment in case you need to use it, whatever. If you travel that much. The stuff she wears. I mean, she's obviously got money. So I think you're absolutely right. Had that not been explained well enough, it could have had a vibe like just a rich guy taking this poor girl and showing her a good time, and now he can do whatever he wants with her because she's so impressed with this lifestyle, etc. But I kind of thought like they didn't really need to. That wasn't really what the vibe I was getting, because she's walking around with fur coats. She's got money too, not his money, but money. So I think she's also the kind of person where it would take a lot to impress her as well. So that's another layer to this, I think.
Yeah, it's not about sex for him. He can get sex whenever he wants to. I mean, look at the guy. He's gorgeous, and he's got $1 billion in the bank, and he's got this beautiful apartment on Lexington Avenue. It's more than just getting a girl into bed. Ray.
Oh man!
You know what's funny? This is the second time we reviewed a movie that's a remake of a 1960s classic, and they're both heist films. I don't know what that means, but they're both heist movies.
They're almost too similar in a way, where it's, again, they really did amp up the style in this film too. So every element of the script is improved. And like, seriously, you're absolutely right. This is not only it's two films in a row that are remakes from 60s classics, but they're also really good examples of how you remake a film.
The two best examples on how to do a remake are Thomas Crown Affair and Ocean's 11.
I 1000% agree. I honestly can't think of anything that would top these two in that respect.
Ray's got something.
I got nothing.
Oh, this must go over.
With whom?
Whomever you bring here.
I never bring anyone here.
Well, you got your hand caught in a cookie jar now. How are you going to get out of it?
You don't believe it's possible that you could ever trust me, do you?
You're transferring assets, getting ready to run.
Suppose I did run. Then what would you have? Want the painting, $5 million fee, and not me.
Any other pet peeves, Ray, that we didn't discuss yet? I'm curious if we...
No, not really. No, not that I could think of. I actually enjoyed the soundtrack. I know, Kyle, you're big soundtrack guy. I like the smooth jazz and all that was happening. It was a good soundtrack. That part I enjoyed about the movie.
This is Bill Conti, who is most famous for Rocky, but has also done Karate Kid and For Your Eyes Only. So Bill Conti definitely has a long resume of putting in great movie music.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think that's another example, like John McTiernan, you know, somebody who could easily be pigeonholed into a certain genre or whatever, but you show him a different movie, he can score it the right way. This, I tell you, I must have listened to Sinnerman I don't know how many times since seeing this movie.
Me too. Even if I just use my briefcase to prop up the office door, I think of this movie.
Right.
Do you want to dance? Or do you want to dance?
I want you to do your job. Because right now, you're acting like a junkie.
This is about money.
It's not about the money. You like the chase.
I'm going to score this movie a 9. I have one big problem with it that keeps it from being a 10, but I love it. And I love this movie so much that I actually have in my house a print of the Monet from this movie hanging up next to the poster from the 1968 movie. So
nice.
I'm a big enough fan of this film that like it's part of my decor.
Should I go next so that way before Ray shits all over this movie?
Or you want me to go in the middle and you can end it on a high note?
All right, yeah, you go in the middle.
I'm going 3 out of 10.
Wow!
Ouch! You like Dial of Destiny better than Thomas Crown Affair?
Kind of. I just was not digging it, honestly. The plot, the relationship didn't work for me. The heist itself, the initial heist, was very cool. I enjoyed that. But everything else was just kind of downhill for me. It wasn't my thing. The best part about it was Pierce Brosnan because he nailed the role.
He was born to play this part.
Interesting that he wore a white tie in this movie, and I think that was contractually because he was not supposed to wear a tux.
That's correct.
In anything other than a Bond film at that point.
He wasn't at the time. He wasn't allowed to wear like a full tuxedo because of his James Bond role. And if you also when he checks his watch in the beginning of the movie, it's a Jaeger-LeCoultre watch, but there's no branding on it because at the time he was an Omega ambassador. And so he couldn't be shown wearing any other watch.
That's interesting. All right, I'm Kyle. I'm with you. I'm scoring this a 9. I think this is a pretty damn flawless film. I think it's a brilliant remake of a classic. I think all of the improvements that they do on it to update the story are for the better. I think they do an excellent job with that. All of the elements work for me. The romance works, the heist works, the style, the mood of the film really works, and I honestly could just watch this anytime. Like I got a couple minutes to spare, I will throw this movie on. So, it's in fact. I've heard people say that this is probably the best Bond movie that Pierce Brosnan ever did, and there's a part of me that sympathizes and said that to an extent, I get that point. So, yeah, this is a winner for me. It gets a 9.
We all know Pierce's best role is The Matador next to James.
The Matador is a great movie too. I adore that movie. But like I said, Pierce Brosnan, my favorite James Bond, which puts him high in the running for my favorite actor. Anything that he's done, I'm going to watch.
For your consideration, Kyle, what do you got there?
I'm going to catch some heat for this. I love the hat scene at the end. Just
nice.
You can't follow what's going on, who's fooling whom. Coupled with Sinnerman by Nina Simone, I just find that so much fun to watch to the point where I'll go on YouTube on a random afternoon and watch just that scene of trying to put the painting back when it's been there all along. I go crazy for it. And the first time I saw it, I was just blown away by that twist, that it was just sitting there this entire time. He put it back the day after he stole it. So I love the hat scene.
Ray, should I even ask?
I'm actually going to echo...
The end credits?
Okay, right? No, I'm going to echo Kyle. That twist at the end was my favorite part of the film. That, like you said, it's been sitting there the whole time, hidden in plain sight. And he triggers the fire alarm to get the sprinklers to go off with the smoke bombs, and you just watch it drip, and there's the big reveal. That was super cool. I love the concept of the bowler hat guys, but it also made no sense to me. So, well, I'll save that part for next. But yeah, definitely the big twist at the end was my favorite part.
All right. For me, I'm torn between mentioning the music because I think the music is just great between the score and the pieces that they use. I think the Sting rendition for the theme is pretty well done in this. Love the Nina Simone. There's a whole bunch that are really great, but I think I'm just gonna go. Honestly, I think the part when the glider scene happens, I really start to perk up. Everything is great, and then when that happens and that leads right into that island scene, I don't know why, but I'm just eating this up. Where I'm just like, man, I just want to be there doing that. You know what I mean? It's so good. So yeah, it's somewhere between those two. Is sort of like just that's my chef's kiss for this movie.
Yeah, I want that vacation home. That looks perfect.
Couple more paychecks, I think.
I want that off-roading Mustang that they were driving
that's
around
pretty
in.
bad. That's a great looking car.
All right, Kyle, who asked you?
So
I have a hunch you and I are gonna have the same one, by the way. But go ahead.
We keep making comparisons between this movie and the original. To me, the original has the better ending. Yeah. Catherine has betrayed Crown several times to the point where she's even told he knew you were going to betray him. I think this movie should end on the helipad with the look-alike handing her the painting and that big pan out of Manhattan. Roll credits. The tacked on Hollywood happy ending is Who Asked Me. I really think that was kind of like, well, we need to give an uplifting ending to this movie. It almost feels like focus group. I think Crown is the kind of guy who would say, hey, you failed the test of loyalty, so I'm leaving. Goodbye and on to my next adventure.
I will jump in here because you literally read my mind. I mean, honestly, that was exactly what I was going to say, to the point where I'm almost convinced you're absolutely right. That was a focus group decision, and even the way that thing is shot feels so tacked on.
Mm-hmm.
Like let's get everybody back for a few just to shoot this last. It was so kind of hollow. Honestly, it didn't. It just didn't feel like it went with the rest of the films. Well, I have a hunch that's exactly what happened. They filmed the ending exactly how it was in the original. It wasn't flying with audiences, and I can understand why. It's not a fun way to end an otherwise fun movie. But yeah, that wasn't really thought through, and it doesn't really work. The only other thing I might have added on to that was I mentioned earlier. I never quite got how the second painting walks out of that building. I like. Now that you said that they actually did film something, so it kind of does it's almost like it fills in the blanks in the back of my mind. Like, okay, yeah, maybe there is a way that they did it. It does happen for a reason. We just don't see it. We don't need to see it. So I'll go with that. But yeah, for my Who Asked You, we're on the same page there. Let it rip, Ray.
No, you guys nailed it. I am thinking about what you just said about having it end on the helipad. I probably would have enjoyed the movie a lot more if that's how it ended. That would have been perfect. The whole time I've been saying the same thing. I just didn't buy their relationship. So that having that as the ending would have made 100% more sense.
So we're all kind of on the same page. You might, not to spoil the ending, but you might actually prefer the Steve McQueen version.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know what you thought of it after you saw that one.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch it because I feel like if you guys are giving it such high numbers, there's something that I missed, and it's worth a rewatch.
Both versions of this movie are worth watching. I love them both.
How can I possibly trust you?
I'm going to trust you.
Gentlemen, I think that is the Thomas Crown Affair, and I think I think we all gave it swimming reviews, except for one guy who doesn't know what he's talking about.
Except the one guy that's wrong.
I'm just kidding. Kidding.
Can't please everyone.
No, you can't. Well, honestly, these things would be like to my point earlier. These things would be very boring if we all just sat around going, "Yeah, this was great. Yeah, this was great."
True.
So it's always good to have one to kind of keep us in check. Thank you once again for a good podcast, and I will see you for the next one.
So much fun.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks a lot, Joe.
Thanks for listening to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe, Kyle, and Ray. Join us here every Thursday for a new episode. You can also find our episodes on our YouTube channel. Check the link in the description. All clips in this podcast are for commentary and critique and are considered fair use. No copyright infringement is intended.
Hey, mister, is that your car?
What?
The cool Porsche. You keep staring at it.
Why don't you shoot?
I don't want to shoot.
Didn't your mother tell you never to talk to strangers?
She's over there, and she says that I should talk to you.
She did?
Yeah. She wants to know what you're doing here. I think she thinks you're cute.
I don't know anything about that car. And I'm only interested in your mother if she lost 20 pounds in 30 years, so I'd really like it if you just got the fuck away from me. Thank you very much.
Whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Goodbye, skadoodle.
See ya. Wouldn't want to be ya.
Smell ya. Shouldn't have to tell ya.